All right. So, what's up, everybody? My name is Juan. I'm an undergrad here at Stanford. I don't know what I want to study yet. I am from Escondido, California, which is like San Diego area, a couple miles north of downtown. And yeah, I'll let my friends introduce themselves before we get started on our presentation.
Okay, I'll go next. Oh. Okay, so my name is Stephanie. I'm from LA, and I'm not really decided on what I want to major in yet, but I do know that I'm really interested in human rights, social justice, and public health related. Yeah.
My name is Adam. I'm also from San Diego and also undecided about my major. So, yeah, we're excited to present some information on sleep.
All right, so I'm gonna share my screen real quick, and with the presentation, um, Adam and Stephanie, just let me know like when you guys want me to skip, and I'll skip through. That's my email. All right. So, okay, make sure my mic is on. So just to briefly introduce our project. So the purpose of our project is to reach out to as many people as possible and inform them about, the importance of sleep and of dreaming. So like I said, it should be like a short 10, 15-minute presentation and like a little quick question session after if anybody has questions. But we really appreciate you guys being here. And Adam has the first part, so I will let Adam go first. Just let me know when to stop or skip.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah, sounds good. Yeah. So, I'm just going to give a little bit about like basic sleep stuff. Okay. So, the human circadian clock is fundamental to how we sleep and live. Um, and it's the thing that controls the clock, like the internal clock, is the suprachiasmatic nucleus inside the brain, and the the biological clock is like a 24-hour cycle about, and it's present in every organism on Earth, even if it's like even like organisms that like have a less than 24-hour lifespan, like they still have it. Um, and it organizes our bodies working according to time. So the organs and like organ systems all the way down to the cell level. And it affects sleep, but it also affects pretty much every like process that our body goes through: hormones, metabolism, muscle performance, pretty much everything to some extent. And it's responsible for in animals for things like hibernation and migration. And it's predictive. So instead of like responding to changes in season or changes in day length or something, it basically changes before those changes happen. And then that's it for this slide. Thank you. And the circadian rhythm is a two-process model, so it has circadian and homeostatic. The circadian is like pretty much what I talked about, like it's like an ingrained cycle that tells our body when we should be sleeping, independent of environment. But the homeostatic like side of the circadian rhythm is like regardless of when we should be sleeping, it's whether like if we're awake, we're not sleeping. So that's the homeostatic part of it. Um, and sleeping in harmony with both of these, like having both of these parts of the circadian rhythm in harmony, allows us to get the right proportion of REM to non-REM sleep, since we're sleeping at the right time of day and everything, and avoid health issues and just be healthy.
All right. Just make sure, Adam, you
Yeah.
covered everything. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm gonna move on to my part, which is about sleep debt and the importance of our class motto, which is drowsiness is red alert. So briefly, like sleep debt, what it is it's the accumulated amount of sleep obtained less than a person's sleep need. So it's important to know that sleep is a restorative activity that heals and repairs your blood vessels and heart. It's also a restorative function that includes maintenance of brain energy, of the metabolism, of macromolecular biosynthesis. I know that's a big word. I don't even know what that means. And the removal of metabolic waste. So in short, like when you don't sleep and you don't obtain the amount of sleep you need, you accumulate a bigger amount of sleep debt, and that sleep debt can be detrimental to your health. So more sleep debt will most likely lead to an impairment of motor skills and a diminished cognitive memory, or in more simple terms, basically your ability to function and your ability to remember things. One thing to note, and that's really important that caught my attention, was missing one full night of sleep, which is about like 8 hours, takes 4 days to recover from. So you can imagine how exponential that number will get when you miss consecutive nights of sleep over and over again. All right. And then just some other like important information is, according to the National Sleep Foundation, Americans need about 7.1 hours of sleep to feel good, but 73% of these respondents fell short of that. But in other studies, they show that humans need about 8 hours of sleep to function properly. And like I said earlier, chronically losing sleep can lead to the accumulation of health problems. For example, increased risk in diabetes, a weakened immune system, high blood pressure, and higher levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And then that in turn could lead to, higher levels of anger, depression, or things like suicidal thoughts. So that's why people usually get the assumption that if you lose sleep, you're angrier and stuff like that. And then last but not least, the class motto, drowsiness is red alert. And just like a little background, in this class, it's like one of the most popular classes at Stanford University, and you can actually get extra credit for falling asleep in class. But since we're like online this year and we're not allowed to be in person, this took a break. But drowsiness is red alert is kind of like a motto that was created by Dr. Dement, who's like one of the pioneers of sleep medicine and stuff. And we like people would yell this out in class to wake people up because being drowsy is really dangerous. So like a lack of sleep is super dangerous because it can lead to things like car accidents and death. There's actually a similar amount of drowsy car crashes as there is drunk car crashes. And then another statistic from the National Sleep Foundation is that 2 out of 3 young Americans drive while drowsy, which is kind of the same thing as saying driving while you're drunk. Another thing to watch out for is light sleeping. And I've encountered this multiple times in my life, actually like daily probably, is when you feel like you're awake, but you're actually asleep. It's like you're sleeping with your eyes open and you're just like not really capable of performing those same activities with the same amount of awareness. So a good example would be like I was reading an article at like 2 in the morning and I was like falling asleep, but I like my eyes were open and my hand was like tilting and my phone was falling. So I kind of just put my phone down and read it in the morning. And yeah, that's my part, and I'll pass it on to Stephanie.
Okay, so now that we've covered the basics, I will be touching upon some common sleep disorders. So first, I'm just going to list them out, and then later I will talk about 2 of them. So first is insomnias, which actually is a symptom that later becomes a syndrome. So that's very important to know. And insomnia is when you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep at night. And then we have sleep apnea, which is intermittent pauses or difficulty breathing while sleeping due to blockage in the throat, which causes when people are snoring, this is what it's related to. And then we have parasomnias, which is behavior that occurs while sleeping that are undesired. So some examples of this could be like sleepwalking, sleep talking, sleep paralysis. And I'll discuss that later on as well. And then we have circadian disorders, which is when your internal body clock gets misaligned, which is something that Adam touched upon in the beginning. Then we have restless leg syndrome, which is an irresistible urge to move your legs. And lastly, we have hypersomnia/narcolepsy, which is feeling excessive sleepiness or drowsiness during the day. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about insomnia. So first, there are 2 types of insomnias. It's chronic insomnia disorder and there's short-term insomnia, but I will be talking about chronic insomnia disorder. So the symptoms occur at least 3 times per week and they are present for at least 3 months consecutively. And about 12 to 15% of people have chronic insomnia. And some of the symptoms or the side effects of having chronic insomnia could be you feel fatigue, mood disturbance, daytime sleepiness, and then you have attention, concentration, and memory impairment. And then you also have impaired social, academic, and occupational performance. And one of the most common ways to treat this is cognitive behavioral therapy. So the first thing with this therapy would be stimulus control. And with this, a lot of people with chronic insomnia associate their bed with feeling like a lack of sleep or not being able to sleep. So with stimulus control, you would have to reassociate your bed / your bedroom with rapid sleep. And then we have sleep restriction, which is modify allowed time in bed each week until your total sleep time is reached. So basically, you're not allowed to go in bed until you're actually going to fall asleep, and you're not allowed to lay in bed when you're awake. That And then we have paradoxical intention, which is a way to persuade your patient to confront your fear of staying awake. And the last one, which I think is very beneficial for not only people with insomnia, but anyone, is scheduled thinking time. So I know many times you lay in bed and your mind is racing and you're thinking about things that you have to do the next day. So with scheduled thinking time, you would actually sit at your desk before falling asleep and like write out a list of what you have to do the next day. So once you're in bed, you can actually just relax. Okay. And then we have parasomnias, which includes sleepwalking is one of them, and that can result in injuries and psychosocial effects. And then we have sleep terrors, which is a sudden arousal from slow wave with a piercing scream or cry. And sleep terrors is actually different from nightmares because sleep terrors occur in the first quarter of the night and nightmares occur in the second quarter of the night. And sleep terrors are harder to be woken up from, and you actually have very little memory of it happening. And then we have the exploding head syndrome, which is a funny name, but that's basically when you imagine loud noises while you fall asleep or you wake up. And then we have sleep enuresis, which is basically when you urinate in your sleep. And the next one. Okay, so parasomnias is a very long list, so we're going to continue. So it's confusional arousals is another one, and it's a series of complex behaviors that are initiated during slow wave sleep. And then we have sleep paralysis, and the picture on the right is actually an image of like, it used to be called the old hag syndrome, or it used to be known as that because it was like you would be asleep, but it felt like something was laying on you. And it's when you can't move your muscles while you're dreaming, and it occurs when you are sleep deprived. So a way to avoid sleep paralysis is catch up on sleep or get enough sleep, because I used to get sleep paralysis a lot, and now I know that I have to get enough sleep. And then we have REM behavior disorder, which is intermittent loss of REM sleep atonia and by the appearance of elaborate motor activity associated with dream activity. So basically what this means is, like, let's say you're running in your sleep and then like you wake up and or you're still sleeping, but you're punching, you're kicking, you're leaping, you're running, you're actually performing these activities while you're sleeping. And a lot of people with this have a history of sleep talking, yelling, and limb jerking. And one treatment for it could be muscle relaxation called clonazepam, which is used a lot for people who have seizures.
All right. And then to end off, we just wanted to close off with talking about some misconceptions about sleep. So here's a couple of myths surrounding the topic. One of them is that the body gets used to less sleep, which is not true. It may seem like your body's getting accustomed to it, but if anything, your body's accumulating more health problems, and I guess you're kind of just not aware of it, and then it'll affect you later on down the line. Another one is that adults only need 5 hours of sleep, which is not true. The National Sleep Foundation recommends that adults get 7 to 9 hours. A lot of people also say, oh, I wish my brain turned off at night. But that is also not true. The brain remains active, and really interesting that there's like studies that show that the levels of brain activity during sleep are very similar, if not even higher than when you're awake. So that's something that I could go on a tangent for forever because it's really interesting. And then another one is that more sleep is better, which is not true. Excessive sleep can cause a lot of health problems and have higher rates or lead to higher rates of mortality for people who sleep more. And then last but not least, napping makes up for missed sleep. A lot of people think that you can just, catch up on your sleep by taking naps throughout the day. If anything, naps can throw off your sleep schedule even more. They can cause a lot of sluggishness. And the National Sleep Foundation also recommends that naps be capped around 30 minutes or less. And then here's a couple other things about sleep is that TV is before bed is good for relaxation, which is not true. If anything, you should be limiting amount of blue light that is emitted by screens. And this blue light makes you like lose that amount of like melatonin that makes you feel sleepy. So yeah, it just suppresses it. And then when you're trying to fall asleep, you can't fall asleep because you don't have these levels of melatonin that you need. Um, Another one that a lot of people face is like snoring is harmless, which it's not. It could be a symptom of sleep apnea, which is a disorder in which an individual can actually stop breathing while sleeping. Um, Another one is chronic stress can also lead to staying awake at night. The environment around us, the amount of light, emotional feelings, and bed comfort can also have a really powerful impact on sleep. Relationships are also really um, important when thinking about sleep because, we all have those relationships that can cause stress or keep us up late at night thinking. And then last but not least, foods. So coffee, alcohol, anything like that, anything that's usually not good for you when you're eating in the middle of the day anyways, a lot of that stuff can also be bad for you and disrupt your sleeping patterns. And I think that is the end of our presentation. Let me check. Yes. So thank you guys for coming. We will stay a couple more minutes for any questions or just conversation. If not any questions, then I'll just stop the recording. And um, if anybody wants to chat or anything, I'm more than welcome to. I'm not busy today. So, oh, my mom is raising her hand. Yes, mom.
Is there a difference between male and female and the number of hours of sleep recommended?
Dang, that is a good question. Do you remember anything?
I don't remember.
Okay. Going off of my own like judgment and from what I remember from lectures is I don't think so. Um, I think the biggest difference between sleep needs would be between like adolescents and adults. I don't think gender really matters with the amount of sleep, and then the amount of sleep that each person needs can also vary on a case by case basis. So that is not the answer that I think you're looking for, but I hope it could lead you in the right direction.
It can. If you find out, can you let me know?
Yes, I will call you when I find out.
Thank you.
Also, just want to say thank you again for coming. We really, really, really appreciate it. Um, and yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to text any of us or whoever invited you. I'd be more than happy to, let you guys know about sleep because even though, I'm not gonna lie, even though we're taking this sleep class, I still find it really hard. And it's a process that we all have to learn how to develop and live with. Oh, yes, I see you have a question, and I do not want to butcher your name. So if you could help me with the pronunciation.
Yeah, so I'm Cheze. Adam invited me. Hi, Adam. He asked me a great question. I was like messaging him about one of the parasomnias where you kind of, react viscerally to like what's going on in your dream. I was like telling him that happened to me a bunch of times, like not like a handful of times. Like I'd like dream about a spider and I'd be like, spider. And then my lamp would be on the floor in like real life or whatever. I'd be like, on the ground running or something. And so he was like, well, did that stop? And so I'm wondering, like, do things like that, like, are they more common for children? And like, do people like usually grow out of it and stuff like that? I was like wondering if that's like something that's common.
Okay, so I will touch upon that since that was my section. But from what I remember is that there's a lot of studies that were done on the reasons why this happens. And I'm not sure if they ever came to like an actual conclusion, but I know like related to sleep paralysis, it's caused by like being sleep deprived. So I think a lot of these have to do with like getting enough sleep, or like even anxiety can even cause these things to happen while you're sleeping. So I think it goes like case by case, as Juan mentioned, because a lot of these actually are case by case. Like you just have to talk to your doctor and like find out like why this is happening and like find out the cause behind it and then try to figure out a plan on how to avoid it. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's more common in younger children. I think it just depends on like the symptoms that lead up to that.
Also, sleep is a very like taboo subject in the United States. So there's still like a lot of research and a lot of like initiatives going on to find out about, you know, how important sleep is. Um, and yeah, like like our professor made a good point about, you know, sleep education in the United States and how, you know, in high school we have like, you know, health class, but we're not really ever taught about how really important sleep is. And just another like some food for thought is we actually sleep for like a third of our lives. So I found that really interesting, and it's just I think it's a subject that needs a lot more representation and that we need to be a lot more educated in. Oh, Sal, you had a question?
Yes, great presentation, by the way. I was curious, can I take melatonin to help me get to sleep?
Stephanie said she'll tell you the answer because I do not know, but she does.
Okay. Okay, give me a second. But I do have an answer to this because I remember we were talking about like melatonin and cannabis use. And it was like this section of the lecture I had actually gone out and like I came back in. But I do remember that like melatonin, like it's good, it's helpful, but at the same time, like Dr. Pelayo was emphasizing a lot that you should not confuse sleep sedation with actual sleep and like methods of falling asleep, because sometimes like taking too much melatonin or like it just depends, like it won't work for you well enough. Same with cannabis, like you just get attached or like addicted to like just relying on that over and over. So I think it just really depends on like your health and your needs. But yeah, I think you can take it, but it's just you have to be aware of how to handle it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't become too dependent of it, because then if you become too dependent of it, then the effect of that drug kind of loses its um, potency, I guess. Not really like potency, but its effect. So yeah, I've never found a need for melatonin, but I know multiple people who have, and from like a trend that I notice is over time, like they have to find different things that'll help them fall asleep or just try some crazy things, which in the end, like your melatonin should be naturally like produced by the body. And I think one of the best ways to um how do you say this, optimize the amount of melatonin your body gets is to reduce the amount of blue light you get. So simple things like on our iPhones, if you go to like if you swipe up and you go to the brightness, there's like a little night shift on, and that reduces the amount of blue light you get. And blue light glasses also work on computers. A lot of them have blue light filters. Um, so yeah, but melatonin itself, I've never used it, but there's a lot of products out there that, you know, could be helpful for some people.
Juanito, Juan,
Oh, yep.
Juan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, I have a question. How much does a dream last
Um,
or a nightmare?
that's really interesting because that's what this is like a super interesting subject that I read, or like topic that we touched upon in the beginning of the class, is like it's hard to it's I mean to get hypothetical, like the amount we could like go through our whole lives when we sleep, like a whole lifetime could happen, but it would only be
Mhm.
considered like, you know, 2 or 3 human hours like when we're awake. So and the levels, like your levels of cognitive memory when you're asleep are actually at their lowest. So that's why most times right when you wake up from a dream, like you'll remember it, but then as the day goes on you tend to forget anything about it, like what happened. So it'd be really interesting to see, like, you know, if the world that we're living in right now is like real, and if the world that we see when we're sleeping is real. But usually like our dreams usually happen in like REM, or was it non-REM or REM? REM. They happen in like REM sleep. So a little bit more throughout the night, and then your REM periods of sleep, they come and they go. So you could run through multiple dreams when you sleep, but you don't really know.
So do you think it's like about maybe like 3 minutes per dream, or depends? Do they have different times?
I,
Okay, I'll answer that. So REM sleep occurs within like the first third of the night, and that's like usually deep sleep. And this is when you have like dreams. Nightmares, I think it's about the same time. I'm pretty sure it would occur in REM sleep as well, because if you're dreaming during that time, it would also happen. But I don't think there's like a certain time, like like a length of time of how long you dream for.
Oh, okay.
yeah, just to add, I've heard like your dreams happen in little like spurts of time, and then like you go back to regular sleep, and then like the dreams just pick up where they left off pretty much. But like in your head when you're dreaming, it doesn't feel like there were breaks in between, but like they happen in little spurts with breaks in between.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes like if there's like a nightmare, I'll wake up and then I don't want to go back to sleep. 'Cause I'm afraid that I'm gonna continue with the nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So, assuming that there's no more questions, and if you just want to reach out to any of us, we'd be more than happy to. I know most people or everybody here has my contact information. But yeah, I'm gonna end the recording because I don't want my computer to take up too much gigabytes on this recording.